So I just don't get it.
What don't you get?
It's just like you're pretty, smart, outgoing, and you're fun. So I don't understand.
What don't you understand?
How are you still single?
Welcome back to the podcast. How are you still single? A podcast about dating in the modern world. I'm your host, Ashley Rodabaugh, and this is season 2, episode 1, the pros and cons of online dating during quarantine. Today, I have with me Liz from Ohio.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. So Liz has done online dating and has recently done a virtual date. So I brought her on to talk about it. I will not tell you whether I am or am not. I'm going to ask all of my listeners to go out and purchase my book to find out if I am still single. You can find it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. So that's why I took my hiatus, is so that I could finish this up and get this out to you guys. I've had some pretty good reviews so far. Liz has a copy at her place.
Yes, I just started reading it today. And
Thank you. So on today's show, we're going to talk about 4 pros, if I can put my fingers in this camera, and 4 cons to dating during this quarantine time. And I have experience from my friends that I'll be talking about, and then Liz has got some friends as well that have been going through this too. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, so we're gonna go dive into it, and I'm gonna probably ask at the end too. So before, when I was doing this season 1, at the end of each episode, I talked about things not to do while dating, and during this season, I'm gonna give tips on what to do while dating. So at the end of this episode, Liz and I are both going to give you guys some tips on how to go into these dates, virtual dates, to be a little bit more comfortable with yourself and a little bit less nervous. So hopefully that helps you. So hold on to the end to get some tips. But first, we're going to go through the pros and cons, and we're going to talk about the 4 pros to dating in quarantine first. I like to put music in between things to spice it up a little bit.
I like it.
Awesome. So the first pro that I have is that you don't have to choose the dating location, which is a big thing. I know being in Chicago when I first moved here, it's huge. Like, it's miles wide, and to find a location where you and your date would like to meet, based on where you work or where you live, it was oftentimes hard to figure it out. And especially when you're new to a city, like you sometimes aren't familiar with it, or maybe you don't want to go to a bar, you'd rather go to a coffee shop, like you're practicing being sober right now, which is, I'm going to interview somebody later on about that. So I think this is a perfect thing. Like, this is definitely a plus. You don't have to worry about where to go. You go to your house. You don't have to go. You should be in your house.
I totally agree. I think it's definitely a positive, because sometimes I think that's part of the anxiety of going on a first date with someone. Like, okay, where do we meet? Like, where do they want to meet? And, depending on where they live, like meeting a happy medium place, like it just gets sometimes more complex than it needs to get. 100%.
Do you go for drinks? Do you get dinner? Do you get food at the bar when you are just going for drinks? It's stressful. That was always stressful for me. And if I didn't like the person, I didn't want to get food.
Yeah.
So then when they asked for food, I was like, no, I'm good. I'm not hungry. But that wasn't usually enough to let them know that I didn't want to continue this date, and they would just order food anyway. So now, if you don't want to be on the date, you just exit the meeting.
It goes ways with me. It probably confused people. Sometimes I didn't want to eat dinner because I didn't like them. Other times I was like, I legitimately ate dinner and I don't want to eat again.
That's fair. Okay, so the second pro to dating during quarantine is that no one pays, which you gave this to me as one of the topics to talk about, that no one has to pay for the date. You're at your own house, and if you want to eat or drink something, I guess you yourself pay for it, but there's never that who pays the bill at the end of the date.
Yes, and I have friends that have different viewpoints than me, and I totally agree with their viewpoints as well. But I know that I am very old school in this about this. And so, like in person, I always liked when a guy offered or paid, and at least for the first date, I just always thought that was, a gentleman like thing to do. But now that that's sort of off the table, I think like as dates progress, and I think depending like where people are in the relationship, it's not like a scale like, oh well, I've paid for this and I've done this and now I want to move it forward to this degree, or whatever. It's like everyone's on the same plane. Everyone's just talking and having a good time, hopefully.
Hopefully. Yeah, I will say I have male friends that you're done if you don't at least offer to pay. He's married now, so it doesn't matter. But he's like, yeah, he's like, I'm done. Like, you don't offer. It's like Seinfeld. I think in Seinfeld they're saying the same thing. She doesn't offer, I'm done. So, but to me, I also think that you can't find out if the person's a cheapskate because there's nothing to pay for.
Yes,
Um,
I agree. And that's
but
something, I mean, obviously, like, that's not everything, but it's nice to be taken out every once in a while.
100%. And if you go back to my season 1, I have a whole episode on who pays for the date. And I interview a bunch of people on their opinions on whether, it should be split down the middle or the woman pays, the male pays, the person that asks pays. So you can go ahead and listen to that if you want. And I'm going to move on to the third pro, and that is that you only have to dress from the waist up, at least for me. I have my pajama shorts on right now, to be honest with you. Like I don't have pants. I mean I have pants on, just like I did not dress my legs up for you, Liz.
That's okay. Well, I am in a dress, but
Yes,
a
you
little
dressed up.
more difficult. I wear a lot of dresses, so for me, I tend to dress all the way up, but I can see that being a positive, for sure. I mean, why not? If that's what you want to do, I think that's a great thing.
And sometimes you don't have an option. I had a friend that was just, she sent her number to the guy on an app and told him that she wanted to have a FaceTime or, video date. And then he just randomly called her instead of texting her to set up a time. So then she had this decision to make, do I pick it up? And she was wearing her, pajamas and her hair was up. It was a night after work and she wasn't doing anything. She was like, do I pick it up or do I wait and let him know I don't want to answer right now? I want to wait for a better time. And she decided to pick it up. And you know what? I give her props because I think I would have done the same thing actually. Because you know what? If you're gonna randomly call me, fine, that's what you get. Like that, I'm gonna look at like whatever hot mess I look like, and that's what our date's gonna be. And I guess if you can't follow through with that, right? Like then maybe you're
No,
not supposed to be together.
knowing my luck, it would be like after a hardcore run, like a 5-mile run or something. I'd be like drenched. I'd be like,
Oh, hello.
with a run, I promise. But yeah, I think if it's planned though, in my opinion, I think you should at least dress up from the waist up. Like go like you would to a date.
Yeah.
Because if a guy dresses up, like he doesn't have to overly dress, but if he dresses nicely, that's more impressive than not, I guess. To me, at least.
I agree. Yeah, I think you should treat it as if it was a date in person. It's just that we are not allowed to have them yet now. So should be the same way, except you're meeting on camera. So I totally agree. Now, meeting at work, like doing work meetings, I totally don't think you need to do that because I'm not. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not dressing up for my work Zoom meetings. Not at all. No. All right. So we're going to go into the final and the fourth pro to dating during quarantine. And that is that you have less of a chance to be catfished. I think so. Like, I was thinking about this one. I was like, maybe you're really good at technology and there's some way that you can edit stuff about yourself. Or maybe you like put the camera like really far from yourself and then they can only see a certain portion of you. I don't know. But I just think there's like, you know what I mean? There's only so much you can edit from a photo to really change your appearance. So you are
No,
who you are.
I agree with that. And if somebody was holding the camera really far for more than one date, I would question that.
Girl, are you there? I can't see you.
Why?
Can you smile for me? Is that, or it's like really dark? It's like really, really dark and you can't see the person. You're like, are you in there? Are you in the picture? Yeah, you can't really hide anymore. Yeah.
No.
So that is the four pros. I'm already jumping to the cons already. So I'm gonna summarize them real fast. Number one, you don't have to pick a location except for in your place. And if you're like me and you live in a big city, I live in a studio. It's one room. Like that's what you choose. Number two, no one has to pay for the date, which is awesome. You can just sit there. It's free. You can use Zoom. It's free. The third is that you can dress from just the waist up. You don't have to dress from the waist down if you don't want to, unless you're showing that off. I don't know why you would, but maybe. And then the fourth is that you have a less chance of getting catfished. I think this is very important because there's definitely catfishing going on. And over 50% of people lie in their dating app. So this is the way to catch them before you even meet in person. All right, so that's the pros, and now we're gonna talk about the four cons. And I'm gonna play some music.
So I just don't get it.
I played the wrong song at first. So it's still music. All right, so the four cons, we're gonna start with number one. And this is something we're at risk at right now while I'm doing my podcast, and that is Zoom bombing, which has been all over the news lately. Have you heard of this, Liz? Zoom bombing?
Yeah, for work I have. I haven't
Yeah.
heard of it happening to anyone on a date yet that I know.
Yeah, maybe people just aren't talking about it, but I have a feeling it's probably happens. So for those of you that don't know what it is, I hope you do if you've been paying attention to the news. It's when somebody hacks into a Zoom meeting and they take control of it typically. And it's usually pretty inappropriate. They have like private parts being shown, graffiti, inappropriate graffiti, pretty derogatory things. So it's kind of sad. I hope it's not happening on dates. But I will tell you, I have been using an app called House Party with my friends, and I need to invite Liz to it so she can participate too. And you can play games with your friends. You can also create rooms, and you can either lock them or leave them unlocked. If you leave them unlocked, anyone can jump in that is friends with your friends. And I know of friends whose friends have jumped into dates that they have done on House Party and they didn't lock the room. So if you're going to use House Party, lock the room or your friends are going to come in on your date. Just FYI. I couldn't imagine that. It's already nerve-wracking enough, let alone with some random person jumping in with me and my date.
Yeah, that would be really weird.
Maybe it feels really boring. It like makes it a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, it could. I guess maybe it'd be a good time to exit. Be like, all right, I gotta go.
Time to go. All right, so the second con is somewhat similar to the Zoom bombing, and that is your date could come in naked, which is kind of like the people sliding in with the D pics. I'm not gonna say it all. I'm gonna keep this PG, but the D pics, they could do it live via video and just show you everything. I would quickly exit. I'm going to be honest. Some people said this should be a pro. They would actually enjoy this. I personally am not one of those people. Where do you stand on this, Liz?
I would not. I think there's a time and place for everything. And I think meeting someone for the first time is not the time for that. In my opinion, especially on the internet. Because in my opinion, I would just kind of think to myself, yeah, is this the type of guy that would be, sending inappropriate things like to coworkers or other people? And, that's not the type of guy I'd want to end up with. I don't want to end up with someone who could get into a lawsuit over stuff like that.
Right? I agree with you.
I think it's something that, would go through my mind and I'd be like, no.
Yeah. I'd hard exit. I'd be like, oh, wrong date. And I would just go done. Yeah. All right. So that is con number 2. And the third con to dating in quarantine is that you don't have a waiter or waitress to limit you or like the price of stuff, right? So like me, I poured myself a glass of wine to do this podcast. And I know a lot of people will date on their, virtual dates, oftentimes because it's a little nerve-wracking. It's nerve-wracking to do a first date, and it's nerve-wracking to do technology and also video chat. So people oftentimes will be drinking while they do it, and there's no one to say, don't pour yourself that other drink because you've had enough. And oftentimes this is a coping mechanism, right? Like it relieves your stress and your anxiety. And there could be a point where you just cross from being a fun date to being an obnoxious drunk date, and you no longer want to be on the date anymore. I've been on them in person, so I can only imagine what it would be like on Zoom. Would you agree, Liz?
Yeah, that would be awkward. I agree. I have been on a few like that as well. And I think, it's too bad because I think some people really have a lot to offer and sometimes may just get carried away to, like 5, 6 drinks and you're like, okay, whoa. So I think, that's something that everyone should keep in mind. It's okay to have a drink, maybe 2 to kind of loosen up, but kind of cut it off.
Yep. Know your tolerance level, know your limit. That goes for in-person dates too, but
Oh,
usually,
yeah. Like
that's what you were talking about, right? Is the in-person dates you've had.
Oh, yeah, that was all the in-person dates.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would just say, the one good thing, I guess, about if people go too crazy at home is they don't have to drive.
Yeah.
So that's a positive out of it that, at least you can be like, all right, that person is not drinking and driving. But either way, it's still not attractive, whether it's in person or on virtual.
I agree with you. All right, so we're going to go to our last con. The fourth con is that you could fall in love with somebody. Like you could really, truly make a great connection, and then you can't physically see each other for who knows how long. I have friends in DC. They have their stay-at-home orders until June 10th. And then I have friends in Italy that have been quarantined for weeks longer than we have. So that's hard for me personally to like really fall for somebody. And I know it's sometimes easier for other people, like they really develop that emotional connection first, but there comes a time where it's gonna take a lot. If I fell in love, it would take a lot for me to not go and stand outside his door and like put some masks on and gloves on and touch each other. Like it'd be really hard. Hands, people, touch hands. Yeah, for real.
I think that is a con. I mean, for me personally, I like to develop a little bit more of the, emotional connection first. But I mean, the physical component is still important. So, I definitely feel the same way that it's a con because after so many dates of talking to someone, you do want some physical component in the relationship to start. And that's not going to be able to happen for any of the singles for quite some time.
Right, exactly. Okay, so that is the 4 cons, and the 4 cons, I'm going to wrap them up for you real fast, is that you're at risk of Zoom bombing. You could have a date that comes naked. 3, you could overserve yourself and turn really drunk, or your date could, and it would just be a hot mess. And 4, you could fall in love and never really get to see somebody. I'm going to play some fun music, and then we're going to talk about a tip or a pro that could potentially be a con that Liz gave to me too.
I'm dancing.
I love it. Yes, dance. Okay, so my uncle put this music together, and he did a great job. Liz, do you want to talk about the pro that could also be a con of doing this virtual dating?
Sure. Yeah, you sort of touched on it a little bit, which I liked about the physical component. So, because people can't move things so fast physically, I feel like the positive is that people are really getting to know each other. That's something for me personally that I feel like I thought some other generations did in a nice way, just that maybe like they talked on the phone first, so now we have to talk on the phone first to kind of scan and see if this is even a good enough match to even go on a date. And then from there, you get to know someone, because I feel like some people can be off on a day, like they just can kind of have a off day, and if you give them another chance, like you find out, oh, I really like this person, or you might be like, I really don't like this person. I feel like relationships take time to build that like foundation. So I feel like building the foundation, there's a lot of time now to build that foundation. But then the negative is no matter what pace you go at, like whether you're somebody who wants to go a little bit slower physically or not, at some point that physical component is important to the relationship. And I feel like that's the negative.
Yep, I agree with you. And to me, the pro and cons of that, so like the pro is you could have some really great conversations, really
Right.
emotionally get to know somebody. And the con is if that you're not good at talking and you're like very introverted person, this could be a very difficult time for you to really open up to somebody and have a conversation. Like it could be a hard time for you to develop that conversational skills if you don't really have them. And I think sometimes it can be easier if you're in person than digitally to get that stuff started. So that's where I see like the pros and cons to it.
Yeah, I totally agree for sure. I guess, I don't know, maybe people will come out of their shells a little bit more and stuff. Get talking more. I mean, I don't know. So I think that could be like a positive.
Yeah.
I know, like for me personally, I'm a extroverted introvert, I guess.
Yeah.
So I like definitely can be very outgoing, but I definitely have times where I'm like, okay, that's enough. I don't want to talk anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, I guess just being upfront with people. I mean, I've told people even before this has happened, like, hey, I really like talking and stuff, but then there's a certain point where like, you know, especially if I just am getting to know you, like I may not be the person texting every single day, or, you know, maybe I just talk for like 2 hours the first time I meet you versus like the whole night. So, but letting someone know that that's your personality is key.
Yep.
And then if they like it, great. If they don't like it, again, that can be great because then you know whether you're a good match or not. So I think that's really important what you said too about like talking and being extroverted or introverted. I think just letting people know up front what you're about is
Yep.
good. And in some ways, maybe this will allow people to kind of come out of their shell more and like let people know what they're about, I
Yep.
guess.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. This is a great segue too into our tips. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
play some fun music and then we're gonna talk about some tips to doing online dating virtually. Okay, so my tip, and this is a tool that I've used a lot of times in my life when I'm in a position of vulnerability and I know that there's something about me that people can make fun of or bring me down in. And instead of like letting that really cripple me, I own it. I own it. So what I mean by that is go into the date, and if you're like, this is the first one, you don't know what you're doing, this is uncomfortable for you and you're nervous, just say it. Tell them, hey, this is my first time doing it and I'm a little nervous. I just want you to know that. And if the person laughs in your face, then end the meeting immediately, like in the date, because they're not worth your time. But most people, I think, will be like, oh, like they're gonna feel the same way, like they're gonna be nervous as too. And you saying that to them lets them let their guard down too. Like everybody has their vulnerabilities, and so many times, especially in dating, we're too afraid to let them down and like let people in, especially when we've been hurt so many times. Like I've been there, I know. And so just like let your guard down, be vulnerable, and the date will be much better. That's my one tip. Liz, do you have a tip to give to people?
Well, going off of yours, I think that that's one of the best tips that you can possibly give because for so many reasons. First off, like you said, you find out if you're a good match or not because you do want to be with someone that likes you for you, and no one is perfect by any means, but everyone has really good qualities too to offer, and you have to find that right balance. So I think that that's probably the number one thing. And I would just say have fun. You know, like don't take a first date seriously.
Yep.
And I'm talking, I've only had one date online, but I'm talking just in general, whether it's in person or online, just go in, have a good time, and you know, at the very least you could learn something. Like I always have been like, what could I learn, or you know, something like that from this person. And sometimes you learn things and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to start doing that now. Like that's so cool. I would like to try this. And a lot of friends have said that to me too, that they've learned something from everyone that they've gone on a date with.
Yes, I agree with you. I know I have. I've wrote about it in a book. So I definitely agree with you. I hope that these tips help people doing it. And also, if you're like so nervous and you're super introverted and you know that you're gonna have a hard time, just write out. I wrote out my stuff before. I write my stuff out every time I do a podcast. Write out questions that you would be interested in asking the person, or you'd be interested in talking about, or topics even, and just have it. You know, you don't have to show people. You can hide it behind the scenes, and they'll never know. But that can like keep the conversation going too. If that's like really, if it's just like new and an uncomfortable experience. But like Liz said, everything is a learning experience, including going on virtual dates. And you never know, you may find love over our quarantine period.
Yeah, and I guess also too, like for all the singles out there, you know, don't feel so bad that you're single. I mean, there's positives and negatives to everything in life. There's positives to being quarantined single, and there's positives to being quarantined with a family or as a couple, and there's negatives to all of those as well. So I think, you know, just keeping that in mind and realizing that everyone is going through a difficult time, but also it could be a very beautiful time in a way too, that you're trying different things outside your comfort zone.
Yes, I love that. I think a lot of the people, especially if you're alone during this time, or you're going to come out even stronger. I can tell you from my experience, well, one, statistically in China, there's been a huge increase in divorces right now. I think you may have talked about this, Liz. Somebody talked about this. They're like, hey, that's an opportune time that potentially this could happen in America. And there may be a whole new flood of people after this whole thing goes through that you can date. So, hey, there's a positive. And I've right?
Hopefully.
That
Yes.
sounds really bad, probably. But you know, I mean, this could be the time where people realize their marriage was not meant to be. And
Yeah, I agree with that. And that, like, if it's so bad that you're like, oh my gosh, why am I with this person? Then, you know, maybe it's just a wake up call. But chances are there was something before the quarantine
100%.
that probably was already kind of bad. And then in quarantine, it's like, okay. Yeah,
Intensifies.
I think it will go both ways. I agree with you. I think you'll see a lot of divorces or couples maybe not doing as well, but then you'll also see a lot of couples coming together and being like a super strong couple and like just having a very incredible bond. So I think it will really go both ways. And I
100%.
agree with being single too. I think you'll definitely find a lot of things to do, a lot of hobbies. A lot of working out. I've been doing 50 burpees a day.
That's impressive. I hate burpees. I truly do. I only do them when I'm in a class and I'm forced to because everyone's watching, and I will do them. That's the only time. But I want to tell you, like, I've been walking around here like to get some fresh air, and I've literally seen multiple couples screaming, like literally yelling at each other. So I think, and it's not. We still have at least the end of the month to go through. So
Oh my gosh. Well, maybe the space is also some of it too. Like if you're living in a small space with someone and because everyone needs like a little bit of downtime.
yeah,
I feel like that could be part of it. Like if you live in enough space that like you can kind of go off and do your own thing, maybe that's the couple's not getting as upset. I don't know.
it's probably true. It's probably true. Well, Liz, I really appreciate you coming on. You've given a lot of great information. I hope everyone enjoyed it too. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.
This is the end of episode 1, season 2. I'm so excited to be back on here and doing the podcast. I think I'm going to do this on a bi-weekly basis. I'll let you know if I change my mind. But the next episode, I'm going to be interviewing a stand-up comedian who also has his own podcast and also is an attorney. So tune in for that. And also, I said it multiple times, but guys, like, go buy my book. You're going to love it. I promise you. Modern dating can suck. So remember, after every date, especially the bad ones, you've got to keep loving yourself.